Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears.
With these famous words, Mark Antony begins what became one of the most iconic speeches from Shakespeare.
I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him. The evil that men do lives after them. The good is oft interred with their bones.
This speech is a masterpiece of persuasive rhetoric and a brilliant illustration of how language can be used to influence events of great historical importance. Before we delve into its details, let's talk about the necessity of this speech. This speech is delivered at a crucial point. Rome is in turmoil. Caesar has been assassinated by Brutus and the conspirators, and Brutus has just given a speech justifying Caesar's assassination. The tides are against Antony, for not only do Brutus and the conspirators hold power, but the general populace has been won over by Brutus. Brutus has used his credibility as a beloved and noble Roman to provide reasons as to why he murdered Caesar.
Romans, countrymen, and lovers, hear me for my cause, and be silent, that you may hear. Believe me for mine honor, that you may believe.
Take note of how Brutus uses Romans, countrymen, and lovers as his opening lines. This reveals Brutus's idealism as he believes in the honourable and reasonable nature of his countrymen. It also creates a distance between him and the crowd.
Censure me in your wisdom, and awake your senses, that you may the better judge.
This distance is further amplified by him standing at the pulpit, speaking to the public as he outlines the logical cause and effect of his actions.
As Caesar loved me, I weep for him. As he was fortunate, I rejoice at it. As he was valiant, I honor him. But as he was ambitious, I slew him.
Because Caesar was ambitious and wanted to be king, he was a danger to the Roman Republic. And that is why Brutus killed him, to save Rome from Caesar. This seems to have worked. The crowds adore Brutus and are ready to kill Antony if he dares speak ill of Brutus. Here is when Antony's genius is revealed. Antony's mastery can be analyzed in three different ways: the use of rhetoric, use of language, and the style of delivery of his speech. Rhetoric uses three devices to create a successful argument: ethos, logos, and pathos. A fourth device, kairos, intensifies and emphasizes these three main devices. Antony uses all of them in his speech. First, he uses ethos to establish credibility. By establishing Brutus and the conspirators as honourable men, and that he is speaking with their permission, he gains the crowd's trust, allowing him to proceed. He follows this up with logos. Speaking about Caesar's good deeds is the logical thing to do. After all, he is speaking at Caesar's funeral. Speaking well of the conspirators, that's also logical considering they are all honourable men. So far, Antony follows Brutus's lead in using ethos and logos in his speech. But as soon as he establishes these points, he deviates and brings forward his most powerful weapon, pathos. He plays to the audience's emotions. He begins with questioning the conspirators' motives, notably their claims of Caesar's ambition, by bringing out Caesar's many good deeds. He also questions why the crowd isn't mourning Caesar and thus uses their guilt to further manipulate them. He teases Caesar's will, building anticipation and frenzy among the crowd. Finally, he uses Caesar's wounds to rouse the crowd's anger against the conspirators. The three devices of logos, pathos, and ethos wouldn't have been half as successful had Antony not employed the fourth device of rhetoric, kairos. In Greek, kairos means the opportune moment. This means that you need to speak at the right time and consider your audience while speaking. Antony plays to the crowd. He uses the correct argument, the correct tone, and the correct use of props to play the audience and manipulate them to achieve his goal. It is interesting to note here that Antony doesn't just use these four devices of rhetoric. He also uses figurative language to supplement these devices and enhance the impact of his words. Antony repeatedly uses the phrase, "Brutus is an honourable man," to create a sense of irony and subtly undermine Brutus's credibility. Here, repetition is employed not to emphasize the truth, but to cast doubt on it. Antony strategically poses rhetorical questions that invite the audience to reconsider their beliefs and judgments. He also uses powerful imagery, like the way he describes the attacks on Caesar's body, to further evoke a strong reaction from the crowd. It is not only Antony's use of rhetoric that is effective, but also the way he delivers his speech. Antony's speech begins in a respectful tone as he pays respect to Caesar and the conspirators. This shifts dramatically as he becomes increasingly critical and sarcastic. While Brutus spoke in a monotonous tone, Antony's strategic use of different tones and inflections at various points of the speech takes the crowd on a roller coaster emotional ride. Unlike Brutus, who stood at one spot only and addressed the crowd, Antony descends into the crowd. He speaks directly to the crowd. He kneels by Caesar's body. He addresses the crowd from among them. This endears him to the crowd, leading them to call Antony noble. Also notable is Antony's use of props to aid his performance. He shows the crowd the will very early on in the speech. He also uses Caesar's corpse to recall the gruesome murder. His final reading of the will is the nail in the coffin of the conspirators. A speech's success is measured not just by the way it is spoken and delivered, but also in its impact. Antony's speech is eventful because it is impactful. The speech successfully rouses the masses to mutiny against the conspirators. It successfully turns the political tide, leading Antony and then Octavius to seize power in Rome. Finally, it starts a chain reaction leading to the Battle of Philippi and the defeat of Brutus and the conspirators. In conclusion, Antony's speech is an impressive illustration of how a successful combination of rhetoric and persuasive language can impact power structures and political discourses. It is also an illustration of Shakespeare's genius in creating characters and words which are for all the ages.